Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Megan, and I'm here to talk about my last five library books. Let's get right into it. These are the books for reference. These are them. Okay. Oh, it's warm, the sun is coming in, it's good times. Okay. The first book that I read was called Reading with Patrick by Michelle Khoo. This was a non-fiction book. It was based on Michelle Khoo's life about when someone is singing outside my door. Distracting. So this is about her time after she went to, I believe it was law school. She decided she wanted to become a teacher. She ended up in a small rural town, where she became a teacher in a very underprivileged community. And she forms a bond with one of her students, Patrick. And basically, this is her journey of meeting Patrick, going and gaining his friendship, and then later on he ends up in jail, and they continue their friendship long afterwards. It's basically the journey of Michelle and Patrick. I rated this 3 stars just because the content was good, because it was a good starting point for learning about how race is affected in education, especially in the United States. So that was it was good to learn about, because that's not something that I know a lot about. But her storytelling was just kind of it was alright. And I mean, okay, so she had a favorite student and she wanted to help him succeed. I mean, she had other students too, so it was kind of oh, she picked one. I don't know. Yeah, it was just, I don't know. This book wasn't exactly for me, but I mean, I don't not recommend it. I mean, it's definitely a good story, and definitely there were things to learn about learn about society, I guess you could say. Then the next book I read was The Fearsome Firebird by Lauren Oliver. So this was the 3rd book in this Curiosity House trilogy, in which I rated this 3 stars. Like I said I was going to rate it, because I rated the other 2 in this trilogy 3 stars, and this one basically kept up with the tradition of being 3 stars. I mean, it ended really well. I like the way that it ended, because it left things, it left the characters with this kind of sense of oh, we're gonna grow older, things aren't gonna always be the same, but as long as we have each other, things will be okay, kind of thing. It left it very hopeful. And these characters definitely grew from the very beginning to now. They went through so much learning, and they learned about that they had parents, that this person created them, took them from their parents, and was modifying them. I mean, it sounds creepier than it actually was portrayed in the book, but and they finally got I feel like the justice that they were looking for with this character that was after them. The guy who created them was after them, and so I feel like they finally got the justice that they were looking for. And of course there was another little murder mystery that the kids had to solve again. So I mean, that was kind of quirky and fun too. It's really funny when kids solve mysteries, murder mysteries. You're okay. So that was fun too. So yeah, so this was a solid 3 stars. This whole trilogy was a solid 3 stars. So I mean, it was fun. I recommend it to children, to middle grade kids. I mean, adults might like it too, but I mean, I feel like this would be really good for definitely middle grade kids. The next book I read was Given to the Sea by Mindy McGinnis. Don't ask me what this book was about, because I couldn't tell you. I was confused the entire time. The main character is, she has to give birth in order to not be eaten by the sea, but she can only give birth to a certain, she can only, what's the word I'm looking for? She can only be with a certain type of, she can't be with humans, she has to be with whatever these other people are that I can't remember what they're called. And then in order to save this village, and then obviously the king of the village finds out that, oh, she's here and she needs to have a child to save us. He's like to his son, you do it, and he's now caught between, I guess, caught in the middle, because he doesn't want to do this, and if he does this, like, I think she dies. I don't know. It was so confusing, and there were 4 point of views that didn't need to be 4 point of views, and the characters all sounded the same. 2 stars, 2 stars, because I don't know. I don't know. Those are my thoughts and feelings on that. It just, not, like, I feel like the author had all these thoughts and ideas that she wanted to get out, and, like, she tried, but she didn't hold everything together, and she didn't make the world building enough, and, like, didn't open it up enough so that we knew what was going on. She kept writing stuff as if we were already to know what was happening in this world, and I'm like, girl, I've never been in this world before. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. So that was really hard to wrap my brain around. So there's a second book in this sequel, and I don't understand how there's a sequel, because this ended off really, like, it closed all of the plots, I think it did. Maybe I didn't read it properly, but I think it did. I think I'm gonna read it and shoot myself, because why? I'll let you know. The next book I read was Final Girls by Riley Sager. So I went into this thinking, oh my goodness, it's gonna be so good, because, like, it's a thriller. I usually love thrillers. I gave it a gracious 3 stars. So at the top it says the first great thriller of 2017 is here, and that's Stephen King saying that, and I can see why Stephen King liked this. This follows a lot of, like, I guess how he writes things sometimes, where it's like stretched out beginning, kind of some characterization, and then ending. That's how some of his stories are. That's how this book was. This book was that, and so the beginning drags, and you're like, okay, cool, like, we're learning. The characters are kind of boring. I didn't care for the characters. But I was like, okay, it's fast paced. I'll read it. I'll find out. And then we get to like the final chapters, and I'm still confused, and I still don't understand how these characters are connected to each other. Then all of a sudden we get this big, heavy exposition from the killer, and I'm like, wait, how is he the killer the entire time? Like, what? There were, like, I feel like there were no clues that led up to it. It just was like, boom, this is how we want to end it. And I'm like, oh no, okay, shock value ending, great. Because he kept leading us on to think, oh, this is the ending. This is the person who did it. I mean, he did a good job of, like, creating this mindset where we're like, oh, maybe this isn't how we actually think it is. Maybe this is how it's supposed to be. But then it's like, oh, maybe not. So the red herrings were good, but the characters were just not it. And yeah, I don't know. This was disappointing. I was hoping to rate it higher than it was, but we move on. Then the last book I read was Life in the City of Dirty Water by Clayton Thomas Mueller. This with the pretty cover. So this is a nonfiction memoir based on Clayton's life. But it dug deeper than that, and this actually made me think a lot, because I didn't really know a lot of the ins and outs, and this kind of added a layer of injustice for indigenous lands, and, like, he went into detail about the environment and how, like, big oil companies come and they just, like, rip up their lands for the oil and this and that, like, without any of their permission. So, like, that's why a lot of their water is not clean. And I was like, I mean, it's probably knowledge, but I mean, I didn't really know this, and I was like, wow, interesting. So I thought this was a very fascinating book, and it really dug deeper into, it really dug deeper than just a memoir. It was also like a PSA kind of thing. So I was like, so I rated this 4 stars. Obviously there were still harsh realities that he faced being indigenous, and it was just, I can see that this was a healing book for him to write. And I mean, he wrote well, and everything flowed together really nicely. So it was a really really well put together book, and I highly recommend it because it's definitely something that's not talked about a lot. There are parts in this book where he kind of goes off on a lot of acronyms and a lot of organizations that he either worked for, worked alongside, or knows of, and it kind of started reading like a textbook. But you get past that part, and like when he's talking about his life and he's talking about being an activist, it's actually really, really interesting. So I highly recommend this book. I think this is the best book I read out of the entire, this is only 4-star read, so it's the best book that I read out of this batch of library books. So, on that note, that is all I have for you today. I really hope this video is in focus because I am having the hardest time because the lighting is not great, but that is all I have for you today for the last 5 library books that I read. I'm looking forward to going to the library hopefully tomorrow so that I can grab some new library books and I will film another library prediction. So, until then, I will see you all in my next video. Alright? Oh, like, subscribe, comment, do your thing. Don't forget to do that. Okay, I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!